So, Prime Minister, thank you very much for having us on such an important day for Romania. We just got done with a meeting with the IMF and the European Commission. How did it go?
Well, well, I should say, because based on the results of the 2013 and also the first trimester of 2014, we should be and we can be optimistic. I never tired to repeat that we had a very good economic growth, 3.5, a very good deficit, way below 3%. It was in fact 2.5, if I'm not wrong. The best agricultural results in the last 20 years, but also we have succeeded to the nightmare of all Romanian governments, which was the European funds absorption. And we increased from 7% to 35%, which is still very bad. We are still on the last position in Europe, but this year it's continuing on this direction. So based on this good news of last year and the first part of this year, of course we had a little bit easier negotiation with the European Commission, the IMF and the World Bank. And the idea has been to continue the structural reforms, because there is still a lot to work, especially on the energy and transportation sector, but also to find solution to use this good momentum for increasing the private investments and creating of new jobs. So that would be a summary of the discussions, and then we can get into the details.
Mm-hmm. So basically the mission will end with the regular staff level agreement and it will complete with the letter of intent approved, which will contain some measures. What are
it's going to be a technical evaluation based on what has been achieved by the government, but also which are the areas in which we are delayed or we should speed up the reforms, especially the transportation sector and the management of the state-owned enterprises. And then we will work together in what is going to be the biggest challenge for Romania. 2014, it's a safe year. We will keep all the deficit and the targets. But then 2015, it's an obligation assumed by Romania to continue decreasing its public deficit and then the structural deficit too. And here we must keep working on the concrete measures for this. So it's not an ended program on the new fiscal and budgetary policies, but we will keep working, and we will try not to be very much influenced by the electoral calendar, but we cannot even ignore it, and that's why I've been pretty happy to see that this time the representatives of the international financial institution, they also met the opposition, because they could see also the political environment, and no reforms can be done against the social mood and the political mood.
So the mission will return to Bucharest for...
They will return in November in order to work together for the 2015 budget. And the new budget will be presented by the government to the parliament not sooner than the end of November, because October is an electoral month, and I have learned from my experience in the opposition but also in the government that discussing about budget during electoral times, sometimes is the worst idea.
So basically there will not be a board decision to approve disbursement to Romania this time?
No, until November, no. Until November, no. Because it should be included...
Like previous month, there will be 2 revisions approved at
one
point or something?
I don't want to enter too much into technical details, because I'm not sure I handle all of them very well, but we have set up very clearly that we will have the next official visit in November. But meanwhile, of course, at the technical level, we will continue to have exchanges in order to see how is progressing the structural reforms and the management of the SOEs, and also how we are going to do how we will keep the budget in the figures set up in the agreement.
So no budget
rectification. The budget rectification will be done in July based on a technical consultation.
And it will include also the plan to cut the social contributions by 5 percentage points.
Let me keep this for the public announcement, because of course it was the most important issue on the table, and it's not fair to let you how it is said in athletic sports to yes to steal the start. I will announce it today, the government approach, because it's a more complicated one. The idea is, and this I can tell you from now, the idea is that for 2014 it's obvious that we can afford to have a reduction of the labor taxation because of better incomes to the budget. But that measure should be sustainable on long term, 2015, 2016. And on this topic, we have not yet worked to identify the measures to keep it sustainable. And this is the idea of the November visit, in order to assure for the next years that this measure is sustainable. So the idea is, all right, we can do it this year, there is no problem, but how can we keep it the years to come? How can we make this measure sustainable? So for this, for identifying the concrete measures, we will work in November.
Okay, and what's the status of the accord now? Is it on?
It's on track. It's on track.
Okay.
It's on track.
And also, you are continuing the privatization. You said you are continuing. Are there more besides Electrica, which is going to be launched on Monday? Are you still planning to do more privatizations this year?
Electrica, it's I'm sure is going to be another successful story, like it used to be Romgaz, Transgaz, Transelectrica. Then we have one, I would say it, easy IPO, which is the energy company Oltenia. They are just waiting for the technical evaluation in order to be able. And then two very problematic privatization, which is the National Post, the mail company. And here we have taken some radical decisions. We have now a new manager, but also finally a company interested in being involved in the privatization. And the most difficult one will be the railway cargo company, CFR Marfă, which is not easy, but we will take structural reforms in order to reduce the number of employees and the losses, and to make this company better for being privatized. Then, not in 2014, but in next year, the government idea, and of course that have been agreed by the institution, by the financial institution, is to take the successful already listed companies, especially in the energy, and even there to continue the process of having more private capital involved and to reduce the shares of the government. Now we have something like 2/3 in most of the companies, and the first step would be to go down to 51. And then if Electrica is going to, which is majority privatized, it's going to prove to be a successful story, then we can think even about Romgaz, Transgaz, Transelectrica to keep a control package, but to let much more private capital to be involved.
To decline below 50%.
Yes. but not less, of course, than 1/3, which gives according to our legislation.
The model of a capital increase so that the money can stay in the company.
Always, all the IPOs that we have conducted up to now for the state-owned companies, they used the procedure in order to keep all the money in the companies for investments. Of course, the budget would have, and the ministers would have liked to take the money from Electrica, for example, €500 million for education, health, infrastructure. But we have decided, it was not an easy decision, but I still think it was the right one. We have decided to let the money in the companies and to have those money invested, especially in the energy infrastructure.
What might be the timing for this further steps in private?
2015 for the successful companies. Now we are going to be focused on the companies which still produce losses. But the trend, it's something that surprised me in a positive way. In 2012, the whole state-owned companies, they produced something like 80 million euros losses. 2013, in only 1 year, we have been on positive with 300 millions. So something like 400 million euros for Romania. I know it's not a significant amount of money for other companies, for other countries. But for Romania to go from minus 80 million to plus 300, it's a positive trend. And now we must work on those companies which are still producing losses. And here, unfortunately, the transportation sector is the most difficult one to restructure. But we must do it. There is no other way.
This is Romania's third consecutive accord with the IMF. Many progress have been done in the country during the surveillance of the financial institution, and you have set an ambitious target to join the Eurozone.
1st of January 2019, yes.
Do you think that the guidance of the financial institution will be needed after this current accord expires, or can Romania stand on its own?
I think that progress has been obvious from one agreement to the other. In 2009, we took the loan of 20 billion, if I'm not wrong. In the second one, we didn't take any more money. It was just a precautionary agreement. The third one, we are paying back the loan that we took in 2009. So it's not about taking more money, but rather paying back the previous credit. So in these terms, I can only mention maybe the most striking difference. In, if I'm not wrong, 2009 it was something around 8% deficit. All right, almost 8%. Now we are talking about 2.2 and going below 2%. 2014 we will have finally the GDP figures at the level of 2008. That means that we closed the negative period. So my idea is that when we will successfully finalize this agreement, we will not need anymore another agreement with the IMF. But nevertheless, until then, and I can only say that this is a good thing, the European Commission is taking more and more attribution in the budgetary control, in fiscal policies. So we will struggle, like all the 28 members of the European Union, to achieve the targets that the European Commission and the European Council are setting up. So based on this, I think that 1st of January 2019, it's an ambitious goal, but it's a reasonable goal to join the Eurozone, because most of the criteria have been already fulfilled by Romania. But now it's not only about technical criteria. Here we can say we are able even next year. But then it comes to the real criteria. That means the competitivity of our economy, which is improving, but is not yet at the level of the Eurozone. all the other real standards. So I think that 2019, 1st of January, it's a possible target, but we must set up a target, because this is how it works, the social mentality, maybe not only in Romania. If we do not have a clear target, we can delay it. All right, it's not going to be this year, it's going to be next. If we have a clear target, like we used to have for joining the European Union, we had 1st of January 2007. So we worked hard, we did everything, we worked during nights to be able to be 1st of January 2007. So if we simply state that we want to join the Eurozone, but without putting a clear target, I'm afraid that we will always find motivation to delay. So 1st of January must be a clear target, and it's also a symbolic one, because Romania will have the presidency of European Union in 2019. I think that this is also a symbolic achievement for Europe as a political construction, to have Romania as being also a member of the Eurozone.
Why is the euro attractive to you? There's a lot of debate. A lot of countries in the region don't really want to adopt the euro, or are not sure if they want to.
Because this is my personal conviction, but I think it's shared by most of the political leadership in Romania. The idea is that we need to be more integrated into Europe, not less integrated. We are not United Kingdom to think that we can better develop with less Europe. So as long as we are fighting to fulfill all the standards of the Eurozone, that will simply force us to be more competitive, to be better integrated, more connected with the Eurozone and the part of European Union which is already in the Eurozone. I totally agree that we must not do it on the rush and unprepared. And I think that the bad experience that the Eurozone had taught us this lesson, that a country should be prepared. But the political decision, shared, as I was telling you, by most of the political leadership in Romania, is that Romania wants to be more integrated in the European Union, and that means being in, of course, in the Schengen area, something that we hope is going to be much sooner than 2019, but also in the Eurozone and the banking union, all the other European instruments that makes Europe more united. My personal commitment to this is based on the idea that Europe cannot resist on the world competition without being better integrated. That's why I'm a big supporter of the TTIP, the Trade and Investment Transatlantic Partnership with the United States. That's why I think that Europe should be better integrated and better coordinated, because now it's a world competition. We are in competition with China, with Russia, with many other big countries, and the divided Europe is not able to resist this competition. Only a better integrated Europe is able to do it, and that's why I think that this is the principles that Romania will support even in the next years.
I'd like to ask you about those divisions, but first you talk about competitiveness. Aren't you worried about a loss of competitiveness if you aren't able to conduct your own monetary policy?
No, I think that being in the Eurozone will force our economy to use other economic tools than just the currency exchange. This is the easiest one. I am afraid of something else that will affect the whole Europe, and that in that sense I have always spoken up the position of Romania. Is the energy policy and the energy prices, of course, which are coming from the energy policy. I am a big supporter of the plan launched by Polish Prime Minister, by Mr. Tusk, that Europe should have energy European Union. Then we must have a European strategy to keep the prices of energy in normal targets, because we are losing not only in front of Russia, which has a lot of resources and then can manipulate the prices of energy, but we are losing a lot in front of United States, which is using the shale gas and the unconventional resources to become much more competitive than Europe. That's why my government keeping and assuring that all the environment standards will be respected, but keeping the environment standards, we are in favor of all kinds of exploration, offshore, onshore, conventional, unconventional, because Europe and Romania, I'm talking about my country, but about our union, if we are continuing to raise the prices of energy, all our economy will lose the competitivity war with the others. So I do not think that just using the rate exchange, which is the most traditional way to for a short term to create to keep the competitivity. I am very worried, and I think that the biggest challenge for Europe is to have a sustainable energy policy.
Because when you're talking about energy, I know you are discussing with the energy companies that a new royalty system, and you also said that you wanted to be fair and differentiated to offshore and onshore.
It's logical that that you do not have the same cost for having the onshore resources and the offshore ones. I mean, it's easy to understand even for a lawyer like I am. Not for you don't have to be an engineer, but also you don't have to be a financial analyst to understand that it's easy maybe to say that we will double and triple the royalties, but that will mean to take a lot of money from very few businesses. The clever approach is to take few money from many companies.
Don't expect a significant increase.
No, it's going to be. It must be, of course, more or less according to the European customs. But in the same time, I want to keep Romania even more attractive than the others, and that means, of course, to give stability and predictability. And the law, which in my opinion is going to be adopted in the first half of next year, should not only give a certain level of royalties, but what I think it's even more important is to give the stability and to say to all the companies, this royalty level is not going to be changed for the next, I don't know, 15 or 20 years.
Is this valid also for the mining sector?
For all the natural resources.
Because you also have a mining law which is in Parliament.
I think it's a good law, which has been blocked for political reasons. But we must adopt it, because not everything refrains to the big political subject, which is the gold exploration. But we are talking about many other resources which are blocked by very old legislation. And the idea is, all right, I am a big fan and supporter of the environmental standards, but it doesn't mean to block all the projects. And unfortunately, a very economic subject has been changed into a political one, and when politics get too much into economic, it must be a failure.
What will happen with the gold mine project, in your opinion?
I think that as long as the highest standards, world's highest standards are respected, Romania should take advantage on his resources. This is my personal conviction, not as a politician, but as a Romanian. I think, all right, we must respect the highest standards.
And do you think a new mining law would give another chance to this project?
I think we'll give another chance to all projects. And in the end, if it's a political and social decision that this specific project is not going to be done, all right. But it's absolutely nonsense to block all the projects because of one. This is nonsense.
Let me go back to some of those divisions in Europe that you mentioned, and I think your thoughts about energy competitiveness ties into it. Obviously, big change of the past 6 months, big new challenges, what's happening on your eastern border.
You're right.
And Romania is a NATO member, is one of the very few countries in the region that hosts U.S. troops, and that's been one of the divisions in the region. Whether there should be an increased number of U.S. NATO troops in Eastern Europe. What's your take on that, and how do you see that debate developing?
I think that it should be a clear red line, and Russia has been for centuries in different names. Russia, Soviet Union, doesn't matter, but it has been a great power, and the great power must have a clear answer from Europe that this is the red line, and Ukraine should have the right to decide on which direction they are going. That Moldova, which is the most important always for Romania, to all Romanians to whom you might speak, you will learn that Moldova is the most important issue. Georgia too. So the idea is that nobody wants confrontation, but there must be a red line which cannot be crossed. And on this topic, Romania has been a very reliable partner for the United States and for NATO. We have important military facilities. We have increased our military expenses, and the idea is that prosperity, economic development, democratic rules, rule of law cannot be guaranteed when there is always a danger very close. Of course, that the feeling is not the same for all the Europeans, but Crimea, it's, if I'm not wrong, something like few hundred miles from Romania. So we can feel it more intense than somebody which is in another part of Europe. The idea is that we should not accept that this is it, there's nothing we can do. We must let Ukraine and Georgia and Moldova on their own. And when it comes about energy, the most important infrastructure projects for Romania is to interconnect the energy infrastructure with Moldova, because then it's very easy. Then it's very easy to say to Moldovan government, you should be independent. As long as they import 100% of the energy from Russia, it's easy to give them advices if you are not doing something for them. So right now, and we have started that last year without knowing or foreseeing the crisis in Ukraine, but we had that vision that the most important infrastructure investment projects for Romania are to build up and to increase the infrastructure, the energy infrastructure connection with Moldova and Ukraine. So but nothing can be done without having a clear security policy.
But will there be more U.S. troops on Romanian soil in the future?
I think that the military presence of the United States has already increased in Romania. In MK, Mihail Kogalnicianu Airport, but also the cooperation with the Navy forces. We are continuing the missile defense system, and it's going to be operational very soon. Romania has just decided to buy new aircrafts. So it is a clear increased presence of the United States in Romania. And for us, the special partnership that we have with the United States gives us the security that we need to continue our national policies.